Recording in progress.
That try to speak as clearly as you can into the microphone for our interpreter, and speak not too fast. Now, I will try to remind myself to do that as well. So call this meeting to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Trustee Ingarrett. Present. Trustee Ochapente.
Here.
Trustee Salahuddin.
Here.
Vice President Lee.
Here.
President Tejada.
Here. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
There's one change, item D21, personnel action report in the consent agenda has been revised and is attached.
Move to approve agenda.
Second. Okay.
I want to pull a few items from the consent agenda.
Okay. Where's that?
We're just approving the agenda right now, though.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry? Okay, so we have a motion to approve the agenda with the change.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And let's see, approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And let's see, I'd like to report out of closed session that we settled by a vote of 4-0, the case number 2022-2023/1. Okay, communications. Start with our board report. Ms. Ingarrett.
I'd like to just welcome everyone back to school. Hope you all have a fantastic new year. And I also like to congratulate the new incoming trustees on their new term. I hope that they'll be able to continue the legacy that we have going on here. And it's been a pleasure for myself to be here on the board to do so many wonderful things with all of you. So I just want to say that, and I do appreciate all the work that you do here, and I hope that my time here has been has made a little of an impact on the district, in that I'm able to advocate in other capacities in the future. So, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Ochapente.
Thank you, Trustee Ingarrett. So, of course, it's good to see us back to school. It is year 2, returning back to in-person learning and on campuses. And so, just happy to see, that, students returning have another place to be and of course, find a place to build community, especially as we're navigating this stage of, pandemic, and with all the viruses, we are aware of in our community, understanding the health risks involved. Just want to reassure our students, parents, and our district community, obviously, that schools are some of the safest places to be, despite, the tragedies we see with school violence, even recent incidents in the Bay Area. These are things that we are aware of and we do address, and sadly, we can't go back and change some of the mistakes that are made in our communities from people, whether they're from here or not, and the kind of things that, we can't avoid, but there are things we can prevent, and I think being proactive, the way we have been about public health, in the same spirit, I hope we can approach that. I'm confident we can in public education. So really happy to see that we are finally starting ethnic studies. Of course, we have a presentation later. So more about that later in the meeting. And some of the great work being done by our mental health professionals and our health professionals in our district, as well as restorative justice programs and peer resources programs who have been doing this work for a long time, including Daly City Youth Health Center and all the resources in our community who have been working to bring it together in the past few years especially. So on that note, just very, very happy to see us get started this year in that manner. One thing that I should note, which should be noted and it will be discussed briefly or at least somewhat later in this meeting, is that many of you have noticed in the Westmore community that Westmore Park is now being bulldozed. I have been the only trustee to be outspoken about this issue, unfortunately. However, many people in the community who I've spoken to, and of course, many students and many families, are extremely upset about this, and you have every right to be. This has not been something that the community had any voice that was recognized or acknowledged in by many members of this board or even the city level. I believe it's a failure of public policy to not protect our green spaces and public parks, especially those that are partnering or that are partnered with our school districts historically for generations. As somebody who attended Westmore High School and somebody who grew up at Westmore Park, learning sports and the kind of things that keep us off the streets and have us doing positive things and even save lives. It's tragic to see that we're trading in a public park to create an office park, especially one that currently exists here at Santa Maria del Rey, which is a community center, which has been a community center, and continues to serve our students and our families in the community through adult education, special education, and a variety of services, including preschool, mixed martial arts, athletics, and a community garden, which still exists here at Santa Maria del Rey, despite, as we'll discuss later in this meeting, some of the actions being taken by other board members and the lack of advocacy from other public officials thus far. So I just want to reassure our community, and as that we return to schools, that nothing is final in these decisions and your voice does count. We cannot normalize life passing us by with unemployment, with the lack of resources, and the kind of things we're seeing this pandemic take shape in and impacting our communities. I just want to reassure people that your voice does count and that it has a place here, not only at the city level, but at the school district level, and it makes a big difference. And we need to hear that more because I feel like our community deserves that as much as any other community in San Mateo County, in the San Francisco Bay Area, and across our state. And these are the communities that are affected the most. Having grown up here, I feel like as a young person of color growing up in Daly City, there were many things lacking, but I never understood why. The reason why is because people don't listen to us when we have the opportunity to speak up. And when we say things, elections become the only point of change. And I want to just point out that they are not the only point of change. And I'm happy that our students have been speaking up for the past 2 years, both on and off campus. I'm going to continue to encourage that and empower our staff not to feel like they are being silenced because of the politics of the Bay Area, in California or the state, where they feel that money talks louder than their voices. And so that is not true, and your voices speak volumes. And so I want to empower our community in understanding that, regardless of who is running for office. You are a part of the public process. You are our community, and you are your government, whether you are a trustee, a student trustee, somebody in student government, or somebody who's involved in something on campus. All of your voices count, and all of those things make a difference. So on that note, I will stop there, and I look forward to discussing the many issues on our agenda tonight. And that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Salahuddin?
So, I'm just gonna take another minute. So, it's the start of the school year, and I can't even express how grateful I am to all of our teachers and staff and administrators for, one, coming back, because I know last year was really hard, and two, coming back with the same amount of effort and dedication, even though in society, sometimes it's not seen or respected or reflected. But you continue to show up for our students in our community. And I am grateful and thankful that while so many other districts around us are having severe teacher and staff hiring issues, that we've been able to start relatively intact. And, you know, a huge shout out to our HR department for all of their work. That it's crazy to me that the beginning of the school year was always a time that gave me huge anxiety because of the reports that we would get about the gaps and where we still needed to hire. And to come into this year where that issue has been exacerbated for all the other school districts and school districts that normally don't have that problem, and for us to come in, and this is the easiest start of the school year in terms of that issue that we've ever had. So, you know, a lot of attention is going to the workforce housing, and it should, but at the same time, I do also want to thank all of the staff. Everybody really made a space for each other, you know, regardless of where you worked. What I saw in terms of connection and wellness and making sure everyone checked in and really looking after each other, you know, is commended. And it saddens me that, you know, as a board, we can't reflect that at times back at you. But I'm proud that you guys are all able to do the things that sometimes we cannot, or that we don't show up in this body. I will say in terms of voice, we are a board, we don't have a singular voice. And so when we vote on something, we all stand behind that vote, regardless of how you feel. That is, when we took that oath as a school board member, it was for the district. And while there have been plenty of votes that I have not been happy about, or plenty of decisions that I have not been fully in supportive of, as my member in my role as a school board member, it's not about me, it's about we as a board. So while I respect that have been given, I will say that it is really hard to be a school district right now, and the last thing we should do is attack each other in this way. So I just want to talk about thanks and grace, and I'm looking forward to this school year.
Lee?
Well
Thank
said.
you, by the
Well-
way.
well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Again, really grateful to everybody for the successful start of this school year. I know many of you were able to take the necessary time off this summer, certainly as evidence from the social media posts I've seen from many of you. So I know that many of you had really great vacations and breaks and came back hopefully refreshed and ready to do the work of educating our 4,000 students. I mean, we are all in this room right now, and those of you who are watching online, we're here because of those students and their families, and to make sure that they get the best education, best educational experience, and become the whole citizens that they will become in our society. And the fact that we get a chance to mold them it's an honor to do that. And that we get to, whether you're the ones as a vice principal or a superintendent or a teacher or a van driver, you're all educators touching the lives of our students and making an absolute difference. And I couldn't be prouder of all of us together to do the work that we're doing, to make sure that we have the best facilities for our students, that we have the best materials and curriculum, and the fact that we're willing to take chances and try new things. I'm excited about the ethnic studies presentation later. I'm excited about the work we've done at each of our campuses. The fact that Jefferson a couple of years ago rolled out flex time, and I see it now at other schools, right? I mean, the fact that we are willing to take risks for ourselves because we know it's in the best interest of our students. So I'm grateful to every single one of you for that work. And you know, I keep getting blown away by what we've done out there with that housing, and to see the incredible positive publicity we've seen these past couple of months since it's opened, to hear the continuing stories from the staff who've moved in and the new staff that we were able to recruit with the hard work of our HR department. It's been a collective team effort to make sure that we get to where we are. And so I couldn't be more pleased and more excited to be a school board member starting this school year, despite the challenges that many school districts have had and school boards have had. And I'm grateful that we are serving this particular community today. Thank you all.
I'd like to echo those positive sentiments as well. I also grew up in this school district, as did most of my family. I'm so grateful. I've just, I've suffered a lot of loss in the last year and a half, but my love for this district and the work I'm continuing to do for this district has really helped me stay grounded. Because I see the students and I see how they interact with everyone on their campus. And you have made such a huge difference to all of our students. And I do agree, everyone in this district is an educator. We all are educators. And just the heavy lift that we're all doing, considering we are the lowest funded high school district in the county. The outside of the box thinking we have to do. I'm getting, text messages from friends in Texas saying, "Isn't that your school district with the housing?" I'm going, "Yeah, that's us," and I'm really proud of that, but I'm proud of everything that we're doing here. I too get nervous starting this new school year, and usually because I have a child in the district, and I just want the very best at all of our schools. But we're in a better place. Thank you again, HR Director Dana Lujan, for all your hard work. And everybody at the district office, and we're so solid. It's such a great family. And everyone in the district, it's such a great family. And it goes by so quickly. Our Director of Maintenance and Operations, Marcus Peppers, you helped us throughout the summer. Keeping everything. And then I said to you at Welcome Back, "How's your baby?" "Well, my baby's almost 2. And I'm like, when did that, how did that happen? And that's, well, my baby is now going to start college, my second baby. So, and I just want to thank everyone who had a hand in forming her into this great person that she is and helping her through a lot of adversity. So I am excited for the school year. I can't wait to see all the great things that we're going to continue to do. And as usual, we, the board, are here for you. Ms. Presta, Superintendent report.
Thank you. So I'm going to start off by saying I'm really excited for the school year as well. One of my colleagues accused me a couple weeks ago of being, too positive. I forget what, I think she called me a name, like too Pollyanna. But I actually feel so, like, in the midst of challenges, really all around, I feel without any question that this is going to be a great year. There's just on so many fronts, so many great things happening and so many great things that have come together and are coming together. I'm really excited. And I too, every year at the beginning of the year, having done the HR job, it is such a hard thing to get our schools fully staffed before the first day of school. And we've done a really great job, and for many reasons. We could have been in a really different place with our administration this year. 2 of our schools lost quite a few administrators. And while we mourn those losses, we are now in a place where we have hired really excellent administrators. So who are here, who want to stay here. So I'm really excited about that. I want to say, since the last board meeting, we've had our all district welcome back event on August 5th. And we have received a lot of great input. It was a great day. We had 2 keynote speakers, Tovi Scruggs-Hussein and Luis Versalis from Courageous Conversation came. We had presentations. Deputy Superintendent Van Raphorst presented on the budget. Deputy Superintendent Baca presented on educational services. Monica Casey, our AFT president, gave an update as well. And then we had an afternoon of professional development that was really expertly organized, and I don't even know the hours put in from Deputy Superintendent Baca and Dr. Lori Robinson, our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. So really, it was like a banner day. I also want to thank my assistant Chelsea Johnson and Jean Enriquez, who pulled off meals for 500 people that were fabulous. And the Westmore Theater, we used it, everybody was there, it was beautiful, and it was a really celebratory day. We actually did a debrief today and we learned things, like people need a break in the morning, a longer break than we gave, and, just things like that I know next year's gonna be even better. So it was really good. I've been on campuses, on all of the campuses in the last 2 weeks, and really, what I think was really exciting for me is seeing the kids getting together on the quads, having activities and bonding in a way that over this pandemic, it's been very hard to do. So there's, I'm seeing life, in them at the beginning of the year in a different way, and that's great. But everything is, the start of school has gone off very well. And let's see, I made some notes. I think that's it. Just happy for the school year, really grateful for the board's support and for my team. Oh, and this is the last thing I want to say. Our Director of Communication, Austin Warden, I just looked over and I noticed that you highlighted the ASB presidents behind us. So thank you, because he's always a step ahead, and that's awesome to see their faces up there. So thank you. Oh, we did a community building event with all of the administrators, vice principals, and up, and we painted, and we all have versions of the same painting. So some of us have them in our offices. Some people you see have a natural inclination to art. Some do not. But we all had a really good time. Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so our AFT Local 1481 report. Ms. Casey?
Hello. I like the reminders on here. Speak slowly and clearly. Hello, I'm Monica Casey, AFT 1481, and I'm excited about the new school year. But there's a lot going on. So this summer, I went to Boston for the AFT convention. So for those people who aren't sure, so AFT is like the national union, CFT is California, and then our local, which is our Jefferson Union High School District, is Local 1481. So we call ourselves AFT 1481. And I just want to point out two things. Both AFT and CFT, although our AFT, American Federation of Teachers, and California Federation of Teachers, we represent everyone. And in our district, we represent everyone, almost everyone. So it's called wall to wall. In AFT and CFT, we represent nurses, classified staff, certificated staff, and some other people that I didn't even realize. So I just wanted to point that out. Both of those organizations have changed their names, so even though they're still using the acronyms, they're saying we're a union of professionals, or we're a union of educators, or because we're not just teachers. So many times people will say teacher housing, it's staff housing, or educator housing. So I just want to point that out. So if I correct somebody, that's why. At the AFT convention, it's kind of political, so we're talking about politics and what types of issues we want AFT to put their time and money into. Reproductive rights, ethnic studies, unionizing, for example, Amazon and Starbucks. We want to support them. Gun violence. So there's a lot of issues that we bring up that are more global. But these are the things we want to get behind. So I just wanted to share that with you all. Another thing that we're trying to bring up is that school staff needs to be held up instead of what has been happening. You know, at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was like, oh my gosh, school staff they should be royalty. They should get paid as much as basketball players. And then, you know, you look on the news a month ago and those selfish people, blah, you know, it goes on and on. So, you know, part of that is we see some students that come right out of college and they're making a lot of money, more than I'll make when I finish and when I retire. So, you know, money is not everything, obviously. Many of us would not still be in education if it was, but money isn't everything, but it sure does make things a little bit easier if we can live where we work. And our staff housing is definitely helping. When I look at the list of who's there and I see that we could have lost those people, we were this close to losing several of those people. And they're here because of our staff housing. But some of those people are like, in 5 to 7 years, I still can't stay. They're already thinking about that. I don't think I'll have enough money to stay if something else doesn't change. CFT, which is California, they came, the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer came to visit, and some of the other staff members. We went to Oceana, Westmore, and then we visited the staff housing, and they could not believe it. I want to remind everyone that, you know, the union membership voted, made phone calls, gave COPE money, spent a lot of time on that, getting the bond measures to get that going, and the parcel taxes. I mean, we all work together, so I want to remind us of that. And so, let's see, I want to say thank you. I love going onto campuses and seeing the Progress Pride flag. So those went up in June because June is Pride Month, but we weren't in school except for summer school, so we kept them up July, August. If we keep them up for the rest of the year, that would make me happy too. And also seeing a lot of pride stuff on the walls at sites. It's really nice to see. And that is, you know, some of the stuff that Austin does to make us notice things. That's really important because we're not just teaching our students about math. I'm a math teacher. That's not the most important thing. Science, social, it's not the most important thing. How to be better humans to each other, how to get along even if we don't agree with each other on everything. Let's find the things we do agree on. I hope we all agree on that we need to make more money in this district so that we can pay people appropriately. And if we can find a way to do that, let's find a way. I think some of us feel like we found a way, but if there's another way, let's find it. I definitely told the CFT president to talk to the legislature. We need to change this system. It's so inequitable. So inequitable. Okay, so that's all I have for today. Sorry it took me so long, but you haven't seen me in a while, so I guess I got to take my time now. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a COVID-19 update? We do. Okay. Very good.
Good evening, President Tejada, members of the board. Tonight, I'll give you a brief COVID update. Last week, there were 19 positive cases across the district. Self-administered rapid tests were provided to staff prior to our staff welcome back, and staff members were asked to take the test either the day before or the morning of the meeting. In addition, all students were provided with self-administered rapid tests prior to the start of the school, with instructions to take the test the day before the first day of school and 3 days after school started. We have self-administered rapid tests available at every school site for both staff and students, and we'll be maintaining our COVID dashboard, which will be updated daily, and notifications will be sent out twice per week to families and students. Staff, close contact notifications will continue in compliance with Cal OSHA guidance. All sites have masks available for students, staff, and visitors. And staff members who've chosen not to disclose their vaccination status will continue to provide proof of negative COVID tests weekly in accordance with Cal OSHA.
Okay.
That is all.
So, Mr. Storm,
Yeah.
would you remind us again?
I'm sorry, I'm Kristen Storm. I'm the District Administrator of COVID Response.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian.
Okay, on to our consent agenda items.
To approve?
Yes.
Mr. Ochapinti?
Yes, I'd like to pull items 12A1 and 12E3.
12A1. I'm sorry, 12E,
3. 12A1 and 12E3.
12E13. Okay, I'm going to have to ask you, did you advise Ms. Presta that you would be pulling these items?
No, I read the agenda and just had a few questions. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a reminder to the board, in accordance with our governance handbook and our agreement to each other, that if we are planning to pull a consent agenda item, we must notify either myself or Ms. Presta beforehand and direct any questions regarding those at that time. But we're going to pull those two items, and with those two items, do we have a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, at this time, I would like to congratulate and invite our new vice principal from Jefferson High School, Cesar Vega.
I am Cesar Vega. I have just been appointed vice principal at Jefferson High School. I honestly cannot tell you how excited I am for this opportunity. I've spent my entire career teaching at Jefferson. It has raised me. I've grown up there as much as I've helped in being some sort of influence a positive influence, I hope, in my students' lives. I've seen a lot of change at Jefferson High School. I've seen a lot of good, and so much more good as we've been in the recent history. And I'm just excited for this opportunity to see and to be a part of things in a different way. In 20 plus years of teaching, I've had an opportunity to experience lots of different things, but I haven't had the opportunity to be a part of change at the administrative level, and I really am excited for that. I know this is a challenge, but it's something I'm up for. I've poured my heart and soul into Jefferson High School, and I absolutely plan to continue that in this role.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So is there any public comment?
I don't have any cards.
All right. So we'll move on to our discussion items, right? Move on to our discussion items. I've been off for a month, right?
I bring it back though.
Haven't done that in a while either. Now on to a debt management presentation from someone named Dale Scott. Ms. Van Raphorst.
Thank you, President Tejada. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, Dale Scott from Dale Scott & Company, who are our financial advisors, are going to provide the board with an update on our GO bonds and parcel taxes This comes in response to the work study that we had a few months ago about our bond construction projects, just to give an update of where we are with our bond financially. So go ahead, Mr. Scott, thank you.
You. Just to make sure I understand how to move this. Just the right arrow on the keyboard. Good evening. I want to give an overview of the district's general obligation bonds. I know it's been a while, but there is actually a fair amount of good news in all of this, which I'll take slowly. I'm happy to answer questions as I go through the presentation. So, the district voters have been remarkably supportive of this district. You have passed 7 general obligation bonds since the year 1995 for a variety of projects. I'm going to point out the one at the bottom, November 3rd, 2020, and if you go over to the right-hand column, you'll see that you still have $163 million of those bonds that have not been issued. So you're greatly set up for the next phase, the next projects, which I know Tina is thinking about and has plans for. And there's still a little bit left of the reauthorization that was done in March of 2020 as well. The gas in the engine of all of these bonds is the repayment by taxpayers, and the taxpayers are taxed based on the assessed valuation of the district. So on slide 4, you can see the last 20 years of assessed valuation. Now, this is not the district's property, this is private property. So it's commercial, industrial, residential, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Pretty remarkable when you look at it in that context. You probably all recall the recession of 2008, 2009, when many districts had drops of 15, 20% in their assessed valuation. You slid through that with really a minor decrease. And over the last 5, 10, 20 years, you've maintained average assessed valuation growth of over 5%. And keep that number in mind when we come to a couple of other slides. So that growth, no tree grows to the sky, obviously, but that growth has been very steady and very constant for the past 20 years. Each of the bonds that have been issued then come with a certain tax rate, and those are graphed on page 5. You can see, however, that the way we've structured this, because of the board's request, they have been structured so they are going down over time. Now, the important note, and it's a little teeny note, in the footnote at the bottom of the right-hand corner, it says, assumes a 3.75% AV growth rate. Remember, your average has been over 5%. So if you continue at the 5% rate, these numbers will fall even faster than they are. Now, if it stays at 3.75, you're going to see this kind of decrease, and this is only the bonds that are currently outstanding, not the ones that haven't been issued yet. So we look to the future, that $163 million, and it's really up to you how that gets issued and when it gets issued, but assuming it gets issued, and the remainder of the Measure J as well, as you can see in the table on the right-hand side, assuming you issue that over the next 4 to 5 years, the tax rates, although they would go up initially, they're going to continue to come down over time because of this way they've been structured, so that they're really loaded up in the front, and try to constantly keep that tax rate in the back lower, the repayment in the back lower, because that's where the real cost is to the district. Now, when these bonds are issued, they're structured in a way that allows them to be refinanced over time. Now, that requires, of course, interest rates to be lower than when the bonds were originally financed. And you have been pretty lucky on this. Over the past 10 years or so, you have reduced the cost of that debt by over $75 million. To put that in context, that's more than most districts passed for an entire bond issue. So that is just an amazing number. And it's been, I mean, to be fair, you've been very lucky and to catch some of those lower costs. But the way you do that, I mean, there's big variation in these amounts, but you just have to keep on sort of taking those numbers as they come, and that's the way it will continue to develop. You can see on the next page, page 10, you have, these are the refinancing opportunities that you have coming at you. Now, under the federal law, you cannot refinance these, or refund them, they're sometimes called, until they reach what's called the call date. That's a date that's structured into the financing that gives the investors some protection that they can't be refinanced until a certain year. You can see 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. You have enormous numbers of bonds that can be refinanced coming up. Now that total there, that 200 million, that's the principal outstanding, not the interest. But the interest is going to be significant, even if rates continue at the rate they are now. They still work well. They won't be quite as big as they were in the past, but there will still be ample opportunity to continue to reduce those rates even more. Is that clear? Then you also have some parcel taxes. Again, voters have been extraordinarily generous and supportive. The gray areas are those parcel taxes that have either failed in the earlier years, or you see in the middle one, it passed and then it expired. So you have two measures that remain outstanding. If you go all the way over to the right-hand side, you can see when they expired. Fiscal year 25-26, fiscal year 28-29. So you want to keep that in mind as you're going. These, as we all know, these have a tendency to kind of sneak up on you, and suddenly you have an election. If you want to extend it, you'd have to go back to the voters. You're not required to extend it, of course. That's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Do we have any questions from the board? Mr. Lee?
So just going back to the refunding bonds, so typically, I presume you would probably just reach back out to us, I would imagine next year sometime with regards to the first one, which is coming up a year from now.
Yeah, it'll be within the next 6 months,
Right.
if the rates work.
Right. Okay. Okay. And that's a lot of opportunity up ahead in the next couple of years, though, that's for sure. Okay.
But you've been patient also, and I think that's important. You know, you're not trying to rush those, you're not trying to do something, oh, let's get it in the future, let's do something else, let's try to take it now. I would just let them sit, take them as they come. If they don't work, put them back on the shelf. Eventually, you'll be able to refinance them.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Ochapente?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. Obviously, your work, saving $75 million is significant, to say the least. And so I think with a district ours, you know, the need for funding that our voters did approve, it's good to see it in numbers, to see how it's funding facilities development, what projects it should be going to, or what it, you know, where it should be going to our district, and of course our parcel tax funding, which is funding our teachers through the rest of the decade with a raise. And so just want to say thank you for that. It means a lot in our district. One of my questions always is, you know, is this demonstrate steady growth for us financially? I know that, you know, in terms of refunding the bonds, separate question, you know, that should be monitored, but would you say that we've made steady growth in our financing over the term of this time, in your observation?
Well, I think what you have as an advantage is a underlying tax base that has steadily grown. That's a big advantage because it hasn't gone up and down and up and down.
Right.
The second advantage you have is, which I've already mentioned, is you have very supportive voters. I mean, voters support districts that they approve of. That's just a given. So that's the second. The third is this board and past boards have consciously made decisions that will limit that debt so it is not being pushed out too far into the future, that it's being paid off sooner rather than later, and that has been a huge savings to taxpayers. And you've been willing, as a board, to try new things. The obvious one being the teacher staff housing project, but other items as well, going back many, many years. And so all of those things put together, both the growth and the willingness of the board to be prudent yet creative, I think has put together a pretty remarkable debt management plan for you as a district.
Thank you. That's to my next question. Our debt management is important. In terms of Trustee Lee's question, just to kind of build on that, looking at where our bonds are now and gauging where interest rates are going to be next 6 months to a year with our economy and global economy being where it is, would you, at this point, lean towards refunding some of these bonds? Do you think that would be a better financial move given where current projections are for our projects?
Well, there's separate decisions. The refinancing of the bonds only benefits the taxpayers. None of that money comes back into the district for additional projects. Those are completely separate. For the refundings or the refinancings, if they work and if they provide taxpayer savings, then yeah, do it. If they don't, it's no loss. You're just going to continue to be where you are today. Regarding the impact of interest rates on future borrowings, there's not really much you can do about it, frankly. As long as we stay under the maximum of state law for the tax rates, as long as we're not going out and simply issuing bonds far in advance of when you need them, then that's a prudent debt management plan, and you're staying within what the voters approved you already to do. So I don't think the impact of interest rates is going to be, on this district, is going to be anywhere nearly as impactful as it might be for many businesses, for example, that are trying to survive with that.
Thank you. I guess my follow-up question to that would be then, at this rate, would you recommend, or do you think it would be necessary to seek additional grant writing to supplement facilities funding with the amount of bonds that our voters have already approved?
I can't speak to that.
I
can only tell you about the bonds.
Yeah, I guess my question around that is, at a prior meeting this summer, the board approved pursuing grant writing to support our facilities development. And it is my understanding, as I'm sure many voters, that we have already approved this funding through bond measures. And so I would not anticipate our bond money being exhausted. But if that's the case, that's the reason why I ask. I feel like we shouldn't have to pursue grant writing in addition to the current bond money we have. But if we're in danger of exhausting that bond money, maybe we should refinance or refund that or consider that sooner. So I'll look forward to the next update. And of course,
Mr.
being very careful
Ochapente?
about not issuing bond money far in advance of spending. I agree, it's a very important area to be monitoring. Thank you.
Ms. Saladin?
Yeah, so I want to say that, just to correct what was just said, we had a budget meeting and the bond meeting, or the facilities and bond meeting that this agenda item sprang from. And at that meeting, we discussed the facility issues and we went over the cost to improve, just to do the required improvements that come from the government, the things that are under code, et cetera, exceeds the amount of bond money that we have, let alone really doing some of the work that I would like to see done to kind of have our facilities, this is an equity issue, have our facilities mirror, when I go to Sequoia and San Mateo Union and see what their high schools look like. I would like all of our high schools to look like that too. It bothers me. I remember it still sticks with me when I had a family member to visit, and we went to pick up my daughter from Jeff, and she said it looked like a prison. And this was after we had done some of the refurb. And there's a whole lot of things that could be done if we were able to do the new remodel that is happening, the new remodeled schools that are happening at all of our high schools a little further south. But that work is extremely expensive, and that work greatly exceeds the amount of bond money that we have here. So in order to just get us all up to code and not have, rain and water and all these things happen, we have to use all our bond money and we have to get grants just to fix everything. But I, like to, I'm always trying to say, in a perfect world and in a perfect district, what should we be providing our students? And I would also like to aim towards that goal. So, it's very helpful to have this information here, especially projected out. A lot of the work that we're going to be doing here it's a relay race. We're going to be doing it and then passing the baton off to a future district in the same way that this board came in to finish the projects that the board before us started. Like the Westmore Theater and all that. All that discussion started before I was on the board, and I've been on the board for 10 years. So these things take a lot. They take time, and when you're having to, especially when you're having to fund it this way, when you're having to use bonds to really think strategically, and, to piggyback what Mr. Scott was talking about, the long-term planning that we've been doing with our bond management to ensure that we can use our bonds in a way that's not just fixing, but also how do we think about having enough funds so that we can ensure that our students have the facilities that they deserve.
Mr. Lee?
I think that's why, actually, I've appreciated Mr. Scott's advice for us over the years, because not only have we been able to return funds to the taxpayers sooner, but also when we had the discussions about the November 2020 bond of $163 million, I remember distinctly that your recommendation to us was that we would be able to make, by hitting this particular number, we would actually be maintaining the same tax rate for the taxpayer at such, so that there really wasn't going to be much of a difference. There was no increase. It would remain the same at worst. So I think as we continue to be strategic about when we do the refinancing on some of these other bonds, we continue, that becomes the story we can also tell our voters, that we have been saving the money over the years, and that they can continue to trust us to properly manage the bonds that they've entrusted us with. So thank you for your advice.
Mr. Ochapinti?
Yeah, just to note, maybe a point of confusion or just to make the correction to Trustee Salahuddin's comment, I was not referring to a budget meeting that was had. I was referring to the board meeting held on July 19th this summer. Item 14B3, lists an item concerning King Consulting, a proposal that's asking for facilities repair and improvement needs exceeding available bond funds. As we can see, we still have bond funds. And so I would say, one, my concerns stem from the priorities that need to be seen in our district. If we are truly concerned as board members, for example, as referenced about Jefferson High School or any of our high schools, those should be the first priorities for our community, not moving and rebuilding a district office. That is not the primary priority. We have a working facility here at Center Mine Del Rey, and we have facilities that need repair where the majority of our students are attending every single day, including bathrooms, exterior renovations, and anything else they may need. Our students must come first. And so when I think about that in terms of financing, I think when you ask voters for money, you should be putting your money where your mouth is and actually fulfilling what they voted for in an election first. And so to be clear, there is an item that was approved to approve a contract for an additional consulting firm, which is doing the work that I would imagine Dale Scott and Company has provided us on the finance side. And so in terms of grant writing, I don't see the need for additional grant writing when our voters have already very generously approved several measures for us, bond measures and partial taxes over the last 8 years I've been on board here almost. So I understand the difference in financing. I just want to note that is actually, these are the facts, and this is what I'm referring to. Thank you.
No, and I understood. What I understood that you were referring to that meeting and that grant. What I was correcting is you're saying we don't need the money from the grant, and I'm saying the meeting that you did not attend which was the board budget meeting that went over the bond usage and our facility needs. When we mapped out our entire facility needs, we know that those needs are greater than the amount of money that we have in bonds, which is why we have to go out for grants. So that's why I'm correcting that, because you weren't at that meeting, you did not get that information, or you weren't part of that discussion. And then when we're talking about putting our students first in needs, that's exactly why we are building a new district office, because I am putting the students first, and I think the rest of the board are putting the students first too. When you look at the facilities for our students that have the greatest need and where we're housing them, it's criminal. And they need to be housed in better facilities. And so this is the point of doing a new DO within a new adult education program, especially a program that helps with our special education adults that are continuing on with us until they're 22. They need a facility that is worthy of them. And so I'm proud of the way that we're using our bond money. And I think that we are doing right by the people who entrusted us, our voters, when they voted to approve the bonds.
Thank you for that information, but I am aware of our needs in our community, and the budget presentation, while I was not able to attend, I am aware of our district needs, and I will simply disagree that it is not a priority to renovate and rebuild a district office, this working facility, when Jefferson High School, our oldest and flagship high school here in Daly City, is in need of the repairs that you so significantly just pointed out. So I will just simply disagree with your stance and your priorities. And I want to say that when our students come first, I mean all of our students and the voters who would like to see these improvements at our high schools within the time frame of them voting for these bonds and their students attending our schools.
Work has happened at Jeff. Work has already happened at Jeff. Work is going to continue at Jeff. And again, if you were at that meeting, you would be aware of the discussions that we had about the work that has happened at Jeff and will continue to happen at Jeff.
I hear that. This is the public school district meeting where we are discussing it so the public can have a part of this discussion,
Right.
not just a committee meeting that our community really has very little, if not no access to.
Right, that's why I was discussing it and telling you here now. I want to make sure that you know and everybody in the public is aware.
Oh, I'm aware.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. There are no more questions of Mr. Scott. Thank you again very much. Very informative, very necessary to get this update. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And now on to our ethnic studies update. Ms. Van Raphorst? Oh, Ms. Baca. I was thinking, there's a stutter here on my,
Good evening.
Bye.
I would like to introduce Ms. Asra Ziauddin, and she is our Ethnic Studies and Social Science lead who will be presenting an update on our Ethnic Studies implementation. Ms. Ziauddin?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see everyone, trustees and district office folks. That was a little tense, so I'm going to take a deep breath. So I think maybe everyone should take a deep breath. So I'm going to do that. So before I actually go ahead into the actual slides I have prepared, I'll give you all a little bit background about me. Some of you actually know me pretty well. Some of you may not. And so as far as my professional background goes, I have actually been a teacher at Jefferson for the past 5 years. And so I started in 2017. And so I had completed 5 years. I was in the social sciences department, taught a variety of courses there, US, World, Econ, Gov, AP World, et cetera. And now I am going to actually be it's formally the beginning of the year. So I'm the district TOSA, or teacher on special assignment for ethnic studies and social sciences as a whole. And so that is a very exciting position. I'm very thankful for the position. So thank you for those people who vouched for me. And I would also like to give background and some context on ethnic studies at JUHSD. So we are actually very lucky as a district because this program is very much teacher-driven. I think a lot of districts, especially with the California mandate to have every public school offer a one ethnic studies course minimum by 2025, fall 2025, may not have the same capacity or may not have the same motivation as actually we do right now. And so what we have is a very dedicated group of teachers that have actually been trying to bring this to JUHSD for years now. And so I think a lot of the conversations have been probably going on, and about 2 years ago or so, the year we'd all like to forget, but summer 2020. Summer 2020, a lot of us were very moved by the horrific violence and the horrific,
just racial horror that was occurring across the country, in the sense of that continues to happen, that has been happening. However, I think so much of it was very graphic in that era and time period, and I think a lot of you know what I'm talking about. Some of us came together and we were talking about, what can we do? We feel hopeless, what can we do? And so I think for us, because the group of us who came together were actually from a variety of sites across JUHSD, first off, we're teachers, and we said we can teach. And I think one thing that felt very strongly for us is to have an ethnic studies program at JUHSD, an authentic one, one that can be accessible to all students. And so that's actually the inception of this program. It came from really a lot of planning and organizing by teachers from really that time period. And so I just want to acknowledge that. And of course, this is very personal to me, particularly because I actually was a kid who never got ethnic studies. Honestly, I just, I feel like my experience, I don't want our kids to have, So I love my district. I love the students that I have served and continue to serve. And for me, growing up, I grew up in the East Bay area, just here in California, not a super diverse district. However, I think the thing that was, now when I look back, the most unfortunate is, as a teenager, I did not have a good sense of self. I never valued where I came from. I never valued my identity. I never even really had the language to express aspects of my identity, really. And so I think even those simple things can make a huge difference. So it's very personal to me that I think that experience should not be repeated with other kids. And that's gonna bring me to what we will speak about tonight. And I'll go over this outline that I've given you all some context. I'll just kind of go into what our objectives actually have been, what we've accomplished last year with the Ethnic Studies Task Force, and then what we're continuing to do this school year. And then at the end, I believe there are actually some questions I may answer through the presentation, but if there's other questions, of course, or if I've not answered some, of course, please let me know, okay? So I'll kind of keep moving forward. And so this is actually the original plan. You see the date there from 2021, and the plan has changed over time. However, what is still accurate is, especially with number 2, during the 2021-22 school year, there was a task force created, and that was actually a task force that included all the school sites in the sense of it had representation from Oceana, from Jefferson, Terra Nova, and then also from Westmore. And so Thornton was the only one that I think we're going to loop in eventually. And from that, they educators, myself and these other groups of educators, were trying to build a scope and sequence that can be followed and aligned to. However, it might be adapted differently at different sites. Again, conversations in this time period definitely acknowledge the fact that we should not only have one ethnic studies class and we're done, so that is not where we're going to stop. But I think the reality of logistics and capacity for our staff and teachers is such that that's a good first step for us. And then the conversations around perhaps integrating into other disciplines, departments, curricula, et cetera, will definitely be on its way. So again, more updates on that, for this year. And so with that task force, as I mentioned, it was a group of about 8 to 10 educators from different school campuses, and we were supported by Community Responsive Education. And this is a group which I think the foremost person is Allison Tintiago Cabales. So we have really appreciated a lot of her leadership and a lot of her work. She is known for, being a founder of a lot of very, very awesome programs in the area. And with them, we actually developed better pedagogical frameworks, just mentally, as well as a scope and sequence. And so that, I think, was a pretty big undertaking, and that did occur. And so move on to our accomplishments here. We have a vision statement. I'll read an excerpt in just a second. And our scope and sequence now contains 4 units, and the units I will also go into. The scope and sequence originally was slated for a semester-long course. However, schools are going to adapt that differently. Some may choose the semester for right now. Some may choose the year. And again, that's an ongoing discussion on how it will change over time. And of course, right now, there are 3 campuses that are starting their pilot, which they've all completed the first week, so that's super exciting. Jefferson, Oceana, Westmore. There was a question, actually, on why TN has not piloted, and that, again, is just back to capacity. So unfortunately, the way the state has mandated ethnic studies teachers who can teach the course is that they have to have a social science credential, and so that limits us to social science teachers in each school site. because our task force actually was made up of English and social science and humanities. And so with that limitation, it actually was a smaller pool of teachers. And then within that, for those who either had gone through the task force, have prior classes they've taken, or just, prior knowledge of ethnic studies, some were overcapacitated and could not exactly do that. And I think that's actually the case for TN. So again, capacity was just a big issue. Our vision statement, here is an excerpt of it, is actually a page-long document, and so that kind of guides our work, and this is something that, we return often to. We want to present and share this with students, but I think it summarizes a lot of our goals for this course and just this pedagogy in general. So what does the Ethnic Studies Task Force envision at JUHSD? The vision for ethnic studies at the Jefferson Union High School District is to provide safe and brave spaces where students and teachers center the stories, experiences, and knowledge of people of color, challenge and dismantle racism and intersectional systems of oppression, and cultivate communities that are committed to wellness, liberation, and solidarity. And as I say that is obviously a very big ask for teachers. So in that way, this is very much, I think we're very much trying to dream in our phrases we're choosing. And this is something to reach towards, but we also know, it is quite a lot to ask. So again, ongoing conversations about those items. Here, I think will be some of the most interesting parts, kind of the meat of what we have done as far as last year goes, is the scope and sequence. We have all agreed, so the 4 sites that were participating in the task force all agreed, these will be the 4 units that will be followed if and when sites are piloting. And again, like I mentioned, this can be done in a semester fashion or in a year fashion. Unit 1 will be self and stories, and that has a lot to do with students' identities. So themselves and also their classmates, their community building will be taking place in that unit especially. Unit 2 then goes into systems of oppression. This is somewhat more content heavy, as well as Unit 3, social movements and solidarity. And so with systems of oppression, the main element is power and exploring that. But in addition to that, we're being cognizant of not being, too negative, because that is easy to do in these instances. And so we want to also really imagine joy and also envisioning a just society. And again, that's a piece we're really discussing as well. Unit 3, social movement and solidarity, is going to be a little more of the content heavy with social sciences, in the sense of we are choosing different case studies that show resistance against forms of oppression. For example, and these are not committed to, but may be examples that will be chosen by teachers this year. We may examine the Black Panther Party, we may examine the United Farm Workers, we may examine the just Third World Liberation Front, the San Francisco Student Strike to even get ethnic studies. And so we're also trying to find those sort of movements that have a lot of cross-cultural and collaborative and, have elements of solidarity in them. And then that way, we are trying to study things we'd like to model. So that is our intention. And finally, Unit 4, Community Empowerment and Agency. Some of you may be familiar with the term YPAR, but that stands for Youth Participatory Action Research, which I've typed up there. This one is where students, theoretically, and so we have not put this into practice, but theoretically, they will actually have, most likely in small groups, the agency to cultivate or explore an issue that they believe is something important in their school community, perhaps, Daly City community, maybe even family, and then are given the tools or space to either research, present their research, and then perhaps take action on it. So this one, unfortunately, I don't exactly have examples because this is our pilot year, so I am hoping we will have that in another update for you all. But again, it's a year of reaching for a lot of good dreams, and that's what we're trying to do with that. Now moving on to this year. So again, that's already been created, and the scope, of course, is not a static document. It is very much a living document. And so one thing is definitely refining it. So we've created it. That was actually pretty much completed by July 2022 with the teachers from last year and some help from our education consultants, CRE. However, we would also like to continue in that process of refining units 1 through 4, especially as teachers are teaching them. For another set of resources, I've created and am growing a Google site for ethnic studies, also a classroom to facilitate collaboration and discussion. We'll see, perhaps both might be needed in the future, perhaps one is better than the other, so this again will be a very evaluative year. We're also going to do more release days for the ethnic studies teachers that are actually piloting, and so those folks that are teaching the courses have between 5 to 10, I believe it's 6, minimum partial release days at the district office to continue lesson planning, collaboration, et cetera. They will also have some time after school. And so that will be helping them along their journey of the pilot. The second slide here has a few more I'll go over. Another big thing is, of course, getting feedback from community stakeholders. So my goal is that in fall 2022, I do some push and support with the current pilot program, meaning the current teachers piloting, and I will hopefully do at least one round of feedback from their students. And so that's my intention, starting September and trying to have some sort of presentation to then show the student, or show the teachers by December. The methodology is still to be determined, so that part I have not decided. That one I'll probably be speaking with the teachers and collaborating on how to actually solicit that feedback, but it will occur. Parents will hopefully, that will be a spring 2023 goal, and that actually will get support from CRE. So that's something we'd like to collaborate with them and how to actually authentically engage parents perhaps or other adults from the JUHSD community. For capacity building, of course, we need to build out this program more in the sense of there is a actual requirement, but of course, we'd like to offer this to more kids and have it very accessible. And so for capacity building, that will mean we have to recruit and train more ethnic studies teachers. Again, I think the big challenge with this is capacity, and that's always a challenge, I think, with teachers. That's our favorite word to say. So I think that will be one of the bigger challenges, but I do know there is interest, there is that feeling of very much of importance for this at every school site. I've met with most of the, especially social science department heads, and they feel the same way, but I think this will also take shape more as we go on fall and spring. And finally, facilitating discussion. So as my point was in the beginning, this should not just be one course. We are hoping that it can evolve into something else in the sense of perhaps it can be an intro course followed up by an advanced course, but also it should be something that is not just living within these, solo ethnic studies classes. It should be integrated as a lens. And so one thing that's already starting, which will be exciting, is there's going to be a group of English educators that will be having discussions around the ethnic studies framework, what it is, what's the pedagogy, perhaps how can this be integrated, what is this lens that may be important, and then from there, I think we can grow it to other departments as well. So that process is beginning, but I think it's just going to take some time, and we want to do it well, so time to do it authentically. All right, well, thank you very much for listening to my presentation, and if you do have questions, I would love to answer some.
Thank you. Open it up to the board. Mr. Lee?
Thank you for that presentation. And I know you actually addressed some of the questions that I had posed, so thank you for that. I appreciate actually, in general, just a statement, the long-term lens that you're taking with this. And I think that's really important because it allows us to be able to to let it become embedded into the psyche and into the culture of each site. And I really appreciate the work that you and your colleagues have done so far, and that it continues to be of high importance as part of the values of us as a group. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate some of the two things that you said. You said, we want to study things we would like to model, and that this is a year of reaching for a lot of big dreams, and I think that's exactly what we should be doing. So thank you so much for putting that as part of the curriculum that you have developed.
There was one question of actually, maybe I can ask you. I think someone asked a question about, is there, excuse me, a pipeline of current teachers? Was there, someone clarify the pipeline?
Well, I'm just, again, I think you kind of spoke to it about, building capacity within the current staff. So it sounds like we do actually have a lot of interested teachers, but they just can't, they don't have the time to do it right now, is really what you're saying.
Okay, cool, thank you. Questions?
Coach Fenty?
Yes. First, obviously, thank you for your work, and of course, our district, everybody involved. I'm sure that there are many teachers and many educators and many students, many just community members who are very excited for this opportunity and want to be involved. So for those that have been a part of it and those that will be a part of it, especially our students this semester as we begin it, that's, to me, not only is it exciting, it's empowering. And so just to say first, myself, I majored in ethnic studies through social science. And this is one of the things that I've advocated for as a part of this board since day one. San Francisco Unified approved their development and moving forward with ethnic studies 8 years ago, roughly. And to see the work being done in San Francisco, of course, the Bay Area, and across our state and nation, to see it here in our community, means a lot. So thank you for your work and investing in that as well. I want to say that. In addition to the fact that a lot of the work being done in our community through community organizing, through activism, through our alumni going to colleges and pursuing careers in fields that actually promote what ethnic studies is all about. It is no surprise we've gotten to this point, but it certainly has taken a lot of work in making sure this is something that our district is not only invested in, but committed to. Not just in the equity statement, not just in the term of piloting. We are starting ethnic studies and we're moving forward. So congratulations to the students enrolled too, and taking that. I'm looking forward to everything that comes from that. One of the things I want to note, and I think it's very important that you brought this up because it was a concern that we had that's often echoed, is capacity. I know as a student and, as a teacher, of many subjects, but like ethnic studies in particular, that capacity is an issue in terms of encouraging people to pursue a degree, a minor, and some kind of background at the college level. So we have many students who do have a background, many alumni, many college graduates, professionals who have a background and hopefully pursuing passing education. One of the things was certification of our teachers who may be interested but didn't have a prior background. Just per your discussions, I could see, the curriculum is ready, we're teaching it, it's starting. Where do you anticipate, for example, for Terra Nova and Thornton, and even promoting this in all of our campus programs here at San Del Rey, maybe collaborating with Shasta, other districts, South City Unified? How can we, in our work as educators and your experience with our the professional development that's going to take to have a certification?
Are you talking about teachers having the certification
Yes.
for the social science credential?
For that credential and or anything that would be furthering their ability to be a teacher of ethnic studies. For example, I know the state has a certain requirement threshold. San Francisco State, there's a College of Education and there's a College of Ethnic Studies. The first college, not just department, but college of ethnic studies. And of course, Cal State LA, they have a college. They have been working on certification requirements. Have you heard anything about that? And do you see that changing in ways that you think could encourage more people to pursue this path?
That is a question for the California Department of Education.
Yes, it is.
So I do not know.
Yeah, no, I understand. For those of you working within developing ethnic studies at the district level, this is something that teachers are watching closely because many did not necessarily major in social science or pursue that credential, but certainly have waited for this moment and want to teach the subject. So I guess my follow-up question would be, with CRE, there are a lot of people who have worked closely with where do you see, with YPAR, Youth Participatory Action Research, right? Where do you see that community development happening with the current program as you've developed it so far?
So I think just to reiterate, as far as the YPAR piece goes, all the teachers piloting currently have agreed to authentically pursue ethnic studies in the sense of having the action piece, which I think sets it apart from just a regular social science class or some other course. And so I think in doing that, our first step is to just try it out our first time and then reflect on it. I believe the group of educators that are doing ethnic studies is highly reflective, as are most of my colleagues, honestly, and JUHSD. So this will probably be something I circle back to because I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm not sure what struggles they will have because they haven't done it yet. Some will actually be piloting, or in the sense of trying to initiate a YPAR activity probably by December, because some of them either have semester courses or, for example, for Jefferson, they have 4x4. So perhaps you can get some feedback on how it's going for them, or maybe what supports they may need for the next iteration of the course. And so I think right now we are just in the process of they're building the airplane as they fly it to an extent, in the sense of the day-to-day. We have a backbone that's very solid. We do have, like I said, sessions where they're going to meet and collaborate. But I can't predict what that looks like right now because it hasn't happened. So I think it'll be more of a reflective piece once it happens for White Power.
Got it.
Yeah, and then as far as I think so, it's a few of the other comments you were making, I think one thing that also is one of my priorities is to connect to other districts. So definitely connecting to folks who perhaps have already done PIPAR, perhaps have other resources, providing or curating certain things for our teachers. So I think that is already there on my docket of a long to-do list to do. And so in that way, that is a priority. I think it's just been week 1.5, so there's only so much I can do. So,
Yeah, no, thank
so
you.
you know, it'll take a few months.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm excited. And I think that a lot of the things that we've seen in other districts, obviously we can do it too. And we are doing some of those things. And here in San Mateo County, we know that Jefferson Elementary has already begun ethnic studies. So in essence, we're kind of following with their lead as well. And in South City, we've had some courses, but building with community schools and that concept includes a larger community that goes beyond our district. And so learning from San Francisco and across the Bay Area and the state, obviously is a blessing, but your work is vital here, and looking forward to the rest.
And if you have context, you can always email me anything that you'd like me to look into.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing on this. I know it's been a heavy lift, and I am very grateful. So thank you for the work. And I was really excited to read the scope and sequence and see the different units because I think they do flow. And I think the biggest part is like we're starting with the story of ourselves. And, you know, especially if you are, if you're not a white male, like you never saw yourself reflected in history except for a few spots. So being able to, and what I think is really important for me is, okay, I'm just gonna go to a story. Like my daughter Amira, she didn't understand that she could be president until she saw Hillary Clinton running against Barack Obama. But she didn't know the story of Shirley Chisholm. You know what I mean? So, and that was never spoken about in school. She would have known that so much sooner, you know, and that's true for so many students, and that our history that is told, and even when there isn't a program that is more inclusive of people of color, it does tend to focus on men and straight cis men. Because there were so many people in so many other parts of history that have done so much to make this country what and who it is. So really telling those stories so our students can know they can succeed at this because a lot of people before them have already done it and it's just never talked about. So that's one of the biggest goals that I hope come out of this, and I'm glad that you spoke on the joy, because I do think it is very important to talk about the systems of oppression, and it's not even a history thing because it's still happening, right? And there's a reason why it's still happening, because we don't talk about those origins and why we still continue to embrace them. But when we do talk about our history, it does in the history of marginalized people, we do tend to focus on just our oppression and not on the so many significant contributions that we've made that a lot of people are surprised about until they're like, see a movie or some, you know, some Hollywood decides to pay attention to it. And then people don't know that, you know, Black women were math. Like, so a lot of Black girls and children of color think that math is not for them, not knowing that there's this rich history out there of how we used to hold up NASA mathematically. So I'm really excited for the program. And I know this is, like, you guys are like swimming in uncharted waters. So we know, you know, that there's going to be glaciers, bombs. It's okay. Like, we're here to take this journey with you and support you in whatever way we can. So thank you for taking that leap of courage to start this process, you and all of the teachers that have stepped up to do this.
I also want to thank you and all of the teachers all of those who are stepping up to take this on. You know, it was really, and I remember that first meeting when you discussed where it was born from. during that really awful period. And that feels like so long ago, and yet it's still here, you know? And I also like the idea of starting with the story of ourselves because, you know, like a lot of us, I never saw anyone like me in the history books and or on TV, or I would find out that an actress on TV was Filipino, but she was playing some other ethnicity. So, and I remember meeting you the first time back to school night when you were teaching my daughter AP World. And one of the first things you said was, I am so sorry, I have to teach this. You know, it's very Eurocentric. And so I feel your passion and your heart. I'm glad you've taken on this TOSA position. You know, when you said about the vision statement, it's setting high expectations or it's a lot to ask, but it's a vision. It's a vision statement. And you look up vision, the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. And it's both of those. And I really, for me, it zeroed in on the word brave spaces, because it's not always easy to be yourself and talk about things that make you uncomfortable. And it's facing that discomfort is where, you know, the bravery comes from or goes to. So I'm really excited about this work. I love how you say you're building the plane as we fly it. But I think you're a great pilot. So please thank everyone. I'm really looking forward to where this goes. And, oh, just a quick question. So it's considered an elective right now, yes, or?
So I believe that certain schools are trying to
Oh.
get it, perhaps that, you know, it already meets a particular ethnic studies.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a requirement yet. But,
Yes,
but
it's
the
not a requirement yet.
designation for it, but I'm not quite positive on every school and how they're.
Yeah, okay, so it's up to each school.
Yeah, because I think certain schools are perhaps having that conversation. I think it also depends because, actually, there was one question I didn't answer, but this is actually, for most schools, a multi-level class, so it's offered as an elective at a majority of sites, so it's going to be 9th through 12th, actually. But Oceana is integrating into Humanities 9, so it's all 9th.
Okay.
So I think, so some, you know, a school like that, I think it seems to lend itself.
Okay. All right, well, thank you so much, and we look forward to getting updates. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
And moving on to item 14C, Cleaning Improvement Plan. Ms. Van Raphorst?
Thank you, President Tejada. I would like to, at this time, welcome our Director of Maintenance, Operations, and Transportation, Marcus Peppers, and he is going to provide us an update on our cleaning improvement plan.
Good evening, President Tejada and board members and everyone joining us. So I'm here today to go over the cleaning improvement plan. So after hearing some concerns about the cleanliness of our sites and just also knowing that they exist and you know, knowing we need to work on that, we knew we needed to put a plan in place that can provide better support to our teams and just better meet our overall needs for the sites. And so I just want to briefly state this is at no point knocking or, you know, anything against our maintenance team. I'm incredibly proud of how hard they've been working, especially understaffed and in crazy changing times. It's about support and just how can we support them to do better, and myself as well. So with that said, we wanted everyone included. So over the summer and especially the past couple weeks, I've been meeting with the site leads, our site administrating teams, the entire maintenance crews, and a ton of support from Tina to just gather some info and feedback of where we can improve, what they feel these issues are, and how we can help them to overcome them. So nothing's written in stone here. It's a working plan, but we do think we have the start to something that can create a lot of positive change. So one of our biggest issues is staffing. We are having a very hard time getting a full staff. We're having a very hard time getting subs. We need to work on our communication with the sites to utilize our great HR team to get these applicants through when we do have them. And we just need training, and we need to work on our attendance overall to just make sure we're planning better for when people are out and just doing the best we can to cover the teams when they need some help. Accountability. One of our leads mentioned desperation is stopping us from really holding people accountable, because we may have a different person doing a section each night, or we may have someone from another staff or another site coming in to work in these sections, and it's really hard to create that ownership where they feel like it's their section and they know where everything is and they can really take ownership of it. So just creating that accountability and having scheduled lunch breaks and times, and just we're not having enough walkthroughs to see what's really going on. Getting the site involved. The custodians can't do it themselves, and sometimes our classrooms are in very chaotic shape. There's some classrooms food's eaten in, some classrooms are very cluttered, and it just makes it a little harder to clean and to thoroughly clean. And then just identifying those spots in our sites that just are old and need repair, and no matter how good we clean them, they may still look unclean, but so just identifying those and finding a way to address them. So then we started, once we gathered our information, we started thinking, so what does a great program look like? And obviously that's a full stable crew at every site. Having clearly delineated responsibilities for each person on that staff. Having our set schedules so everyone knows where everyone's at and everyone can work together and stay as a team. Setting expectations for teachers and coaches so we know if a teacher's having kids eat in their room, or if a coach is at practice, just having clear responsibilities of what maintenance is responsible for and what they're responsible for. Student expectations, how can we get them involved? What are they responsible if they're eating in the room? Hopefully they'll be helping us with getting that to the trash, so it's a little easier for us to clean. Having an administrative designee that can have regular meetings at the site. Obviously, I want to join as much as I can, but if we have someone at the site, they're a little more accessible on a regular basis to be able to meet with the teams and help support them. And then just better training for our subs that are helping at the sites, including like our drivers, if they want to pick up hours and pick up a night shift. Just making sure everyone knows the duties so they can come to any site and be able to take care of the regular duties of the night crew. Is basically the three main ideas. Is we want the whole campus involved. We want to increase that support for the custodians and make sure they feel that support, and then just improving overall accountability. And so the 4 sections here are in more detail in the plan details, which you guys have access to. I won't go that deep into the woods on this, but each one of these sections will align with the plan details for the steps to put those into action. So, designating a site administrator allows those regular custodian meetings, allows them to have someone they can, bounce back ideas and, coordinate communication with the staff. So it's immediately on site, and then they can also help engage the students and engage the staff and make sure everyone's involved. And then maintaining that regular walkthrough schedule. Like I said, I'll be there as much as possible, but when we have someone on site, we can make those a little more frequent. And then just assist in things like personnel issues or discipline or, communication and hiring, making sure that we're supporting each other and getting people on as quick as we can. And then engaging the campus and, the staff, try to get our campus supervisors and our VPs to help monitor the site. So if they notice a dirty bathroom or they notice a spill on the wall or they notice some garbage in an area, just giving us some extra eyes and extra support so we can address it quicker and it's not something that stays there or, less people are noticing it. And then, encouraging the staff to really help with, now that we have the recycling and composting in place, just really encouraging everyone to be a part of that and really try to make it efficient and the best we can to actually utilize it and understand what goes where. And we'll be working on things like that as well, like, pictures and just having everyone engaged in that. Establishing those classroom rules and the athletic standards. Sometimes some practices can get crazy and, maintenance comes in and now it's taken an extra half an hour away from their normal duties. And, sometimes the classrooms that kids eat in will have rodent problems or insect problems. And so just really having clear guidelines so we can avoid some of that stuff and allow more time for them to focus on their regular duties. And then just minimizing some of the random things they're asked. Sometimes they're asked to bring packages to classrooms or unlock a door here. And so just trying to minimize that as well so we can maximize our time for cleaning and make sure the site looks well. And then addressing the staffing shortages is our biggest one. We need to get to full staff, but then we want to hire 2 additional night rovers. So we always have what would be a sub right now that we can always send to a site. And even if we reach that 100% and everyone's working, we'll still have duties that these 2 can help us catch up on and extra projects to go over the top. Remove the testing for subs. With subs, it's great that we can hire them, and we get to see how they work. They're coming on, and that, to me, that's kind of their test there. We can see how they're working with the team and see if they can complete the duties. So we've actually already taken that step, and then just revising our other tests to make sure that the test only directly is about the job, that the test isn't holding. In the past, we've had some people that maybe a language barrier or, just not understanding something could hold up them not passing the test, even though that didn't show that they could do the job. So we've been looking at that, and we've definitely been working on the language for them as well. Training. And then hiring outside help for projects that we may not have time for or projects that are over our staff's expertise. Just identifying those and getting them in a timely manner. And then just monitor our attendance and see if we can improve on that. And just, making sure that they're following, the contract and trying to give us, when possible, if you're taking vacation, try to give us some warning for it so we can plan for it. Obviously, things always come up and we can work with that, but when possible, giving that notice and giving us proper time to prepare. And then just improving processes and systems, just having clearly delineated duties for each custodian. So I'm working on, checklists and timing and using standards throughout the industry to just kind of lay out what's expected in a night and what's expected in a week, what's expected in a month, and just having that really clear, not only for the staff that's on site, but if someone comes on site to help as a sub, we have something that we can kind of, okay, these are your duties tonight, and it's not just kind of off, just working it through. Setting those schedules just so we know where everyone's at and everyone's working together. And then addressing those areas where cleaning isn't going to help and setting a plan to fix those areas. And then working on our work routing system. So our help desk right now, everything is funneled through myself instead of going to the sites. So just working on a system that it'll go to the sites so the sites can elevate it to me, which creates a lot less back and forth. It'll make it a lot more efficient. And it'll also help us with being able to close out tickets without having to check in multiple times back and forth. Hey, did you get this? So it'll just make our system a lot cleaner and a lot more efficient. And then rotating summer school, just because, as you know, if you have summer school at one site for so many years in a row, the summer work cannot be done as complete as when another school doesn't have summer school. So just if we were able to kind of rotate those back and forth, I think it'd really help the sites that have been having it. And then, of course, we need some sort of way to try to track how this is working, because we want to be able to adapt it and make sure we know what's working, what isn't, and how we can change that. So having those walkthroughs, there also will be a checklist that I'll be working on for the quick walkthroughs, and also a bigger quarterly walkthrough that will cover everything, but then a quick walkthrough that'll just be the basic things that we should be looking for to make sure we're maintaining the campus. Attendance, which 84.9% is not terrible, but when we're already understaffed, that number impacts us a little more. If we're only at 80 or 85%, and then we're having 85% attendance, it has a little more impact. And seeing if we can just improve that number, and then, like I mentioned, just cleaning up the work order system so it's a little clearer and a lot more efficient. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much for your time, and please, any questions or comments you guys would like to have.
Questions, or Mr. Lee?
Yep, just thank you for the comprehensive plan and the metrics associated with it. I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out over the course of the year, but I appreciate the attention to detail that you put in the plan. Clearly, staffing is probably the number one issue, but I appreciate the accountability that you are building in, the fact that some of your team members have spoken to the accountability issue, so that's good. Thank you.
Mr. Ochapenti, did you have your hand raised?
I just wanted to say, I appreciate that you say that everyone is accountable, that you can't do it all yourself, so everybody needs to do their part. So, and that's definitely understandable. But thank you for putting this together and giving perspective to it and really trying to make some change. And you can only do so much, as you said, if you're understaffed. So I understand you're trying your best. So thank you.
Yeah, first, of course, thank you for your work and, your observation and monitoring of, I think an area of public education that could always use improvement is facilities work, right? We talk about improving our facilities. One of the first things you experience as a student or anybody on campus is just the ability to use facilities, their function, and of course our bathrooms and any public space that our community is sharing, especially during a pandemic, which I believe has heightened our awareness to the needs of all of us individually, but more importantly, really, as a community, as a collective, and public agencies to provide resources for our staff, for our students, parents, families, and of course, district community, to fulfill those expectations, which are really at a minimum, right? Clean facilities, healthy facilities, sanitary facilities. I want to, obviously noted in your presentation, some of the things like composting campaign. On one end, it's really exciting to see that in those terms, because our students have campaigned through Grizzlies Go Green at Jefferson, of course, Go Green clubs at all of our high schools in terms of environmental justice, advocating for clean, safe, and healthy and sustainable urban environments, especially in our district where we are highly urbanized. And despite that, we have some of the least resources in San Mateo County, one of the richest communities in our Bay Area, and of course, state and nation. So the disparities that we work with as a school district in addressing these things, I think people who are from here and who are here note that, but obviously have the same concerns and should. So thank you for addressing that, as it was mentioned so comprehensively. And as you know, this is one of the things in terms of walkthroughs. I've worked in various aspects of maintenance, not to this degree, but I know detail-oriented only begins to describe, because you can't even see the kind of things that could be harming our students. They're medical. they're microbiological. So the amount of training and resources needed, and I think just staffing. I know our staff, get sick too, especially their frontline workers. And so I just want to note that some of the most essential workers, the ones who are cleaning facilities where they're not aware of the full hazards and had to wait a long time for hazard pay or any kind of resources to support them and their families as they fulfill the work in our community, in our schools, which, of course, after all the waiting to reopen schools is largely contingent on our ability to support all of this work. And so that said, one of the things I think I want to, a shout out to the students who have advocated for these things and always do. They're always, student agency is a big part of it. I don't like to think about accountability in terms of students because we're here to serve them, right? So the responsibility part is us playing a part together in a way that builds and empowers students in wanting to be involved and encourages staff to mirror that, right? And so there are many students and, of course, staff and community who are playing a part. And so students, parents, and our staff who have been doing that is one of the most important things because we've been learning this through a pandemic, through public health agencies. And as a school district, I think one of the most important things is information and timely resources, right? So my first question would be this, I know it's the first thing you pointed out too, so I appreciate that, is staff shortage and resources shortage. When it comes to, and as a teacher I know this, soap in bathrooms, hand sanitizer, paper towels. Even when somebody wastes resources or damages something or somebody's, basically just abusing, paper towels or toilet paper in a bathroom, these are things that teenagers do. It's just part of life. So we need to provide what we need to provide for them. Do you feel that we have had enough ready supply of resources in our schools through the duration of the pandemic?
Yes, I feel we've had them, and I think that's where the walkthroughs and having extra eyes to let us know when these items do come up, I think that's what will be very helpful. We generally do always have them on hand. We just may be running around and doing things and not realize that a bathroom's run out. And so I believe we do have them. That's where we want that support of everyone being involved. Notify us as quick as we can. So there is always soap. There's always toilet paper. There's always something there. And that's what we want to work on with this.
Thank you. My second question is, how can we support our current and prospective staff in terms of their health, in terms of their availability? This could be a question for our superintendent, any of our district staff as well. If you want to jump in, I know you run this department, this area of that. Have you seen a large turnover, or do you feel like the jobs that are available are being hired consistently, or at least keeping up with the pace of the need?
So, I mean, we will get candidates here and there. We don't get enough candidates quick enough to replace all we are losing.
Okay.
And we have a ton of shifting in the maintenance department. So, we'll lose custodians because they want to go to gardening or, and there's just this constant shift that's always happening. So we'll finally get to a full staff. And then say a driver position will open up and they'll want to move from nights to get to a driver position, or even, a day office position opens up. So we'll have someone that wants to leave a night position. And so our hardest position to fill has been night custodians. And it's just because most people want to work that day shift. And so they're going somewhere else to try to get that day shift.
No, I understand that too. I mean, that's one thing I think in terms of internal staffing, this is some of the hardest work, just to acknowledge that. And hopefully we can expand the hiring that we're doing and support and training for those people who are taking on those jobs. I guess my last question would be, in terms of collaboration at the school site, and notice that in prior slides, where do you think it will be most helpful for maybe day staff or night staff? We have a lot of student athletes. They have a double shift, right? They go to school all day, they practice, and they come back the next day and do it again. For those who are coaches and people from the community who are on campus, you should expect the same thing during the daytime. what are the best ways we can support the night staff in accomplishing what they need to do before the morning? Because night work is hard. I mean, I was raised, around, parents working the graveyard shift. So it's not easy, and it takes a toll on your health. And so how can we support them, and how can students, faculty, staff, all of us together help out?
That's part of what we're going to adapt the plan to, but I think part of that is having those clear responsibilities for what is going to be expected of those coaches, where does it cross over into the night staff, and then also with the clearly delineated duties of the night staff, there's going to be prioritized items that it's, to keep that basic minimum of being safe. Sorry. They got caught in my throat there.
You're good. You're good.
And
Take your
just
time.
yeah, and just with those duties being clearly laid out, they'll know that this is the basic minimum we have to get done, and then there's going to be the extras that you can try to add on to that. But just to keep our safe, clean, and looking good for the students, there's going to be those priority items that they're going to know to focus on those first. And then, of course, as we go through this and as we're doing these walkthroughs and we're seeing other areas, we'll be able to adapt that and, find ways we can better support them. Because that's what this is at the end of the day, is we want to build something that creates support and makes them feel supported, and also allows them to do their job to the best ability.
Thank you. My last comment is really a comment and a suggestion maybe for our district. I don't know if the superintendent want to comment on this. Is in terms of funding or any other district staff. One of the things I've noticed is that our maintenance staff is usually overworked in many school districts. And so recycling and composting can at times be extra things that they're not necessarily resourced for, they're not necessarily paid for, or if those systems aren't in place, we don't have a system that students and staff can actually be a part of. I guess my recommendation would be, as something that is provided for in our LCAP, to consider whatever staffing resources we need and resources for our staff working maintenance, that we provide funding for separating waste, recycling, and composted materials, and that any of these programs be promoted within our schools so that we can actually implement this, before and through our walkthroughs this semester, as we develop our LCAP this year, given that's a high priority, not only noted in our own LCAP, but by our student trustees as well. It's very high priority. So, thank you.
I'm okay.
So, Mr. Peppers, thank you so much for this really comprehensive plan. It is an improvement plan. It's so well thought out. And I just like how you say you want to create positive change. You have a great presentation, by the way. I wish I was
Pretty
as
incredible.
I know. Wish I was as smooth that way. But I'm sorry, we're so understaffed. But considering that, you guys have done such a great job getting our schools ready. Just amazing. And please thank them again from us. And this is just a really great plan. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Let's see, it's 9 o'clock. Would anybody be adverse to taking a short break? Could we take like a 5-minute break? I personally need to take a 5-minute break. Okay, so we'll come back in about 5 minutes. Okay, are we ready? All right. Thank you. We're back from our recess at 9:08 p.m. And so now we're on to our action items. I want to propose that we take the human resources action items as A, 1, 2, 3, 4 as one vote. Or Ms. Lujan, would that work for you?
That works for us.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and so then now we'll get to the pulled items. Item 12A1. I'm sorry?
There's one more action item before the pulled items.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I was thinking I could save that for later.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for interrupting.
That's okay.
All right.
We're all a family. Appreciate it. So 12A1, Mr. Ochapinti, you wanted to pull the MOU for the Boys and Girls Club. Were there questions you had or clarification?
Yes, of course. It's good to see that with the Boys and Girls Club, we're doing that work with them. I just want to honor and mention that, as somebody who's worked with, youth work and community organizing and sports programming through college and even, as a student who benefited from that in the youth in the community, Boys and Girls Clubs always served that role, the YMCA, many services in San Francisco and Bay Area. And so this was noted at the City Council, and I want to honor that they're continuing to do work in our community. My question is this, as we are providing these services on campus, how are these services collaborating with existing services, like the Daly City Parks and Library and Recreation, I should say, department, because we no longer have a Parks department, right? But our Library and Recreation department, and is there anything that we are doing to help further that collaboration on our campuses, given that we have a lot of students who are already involved in other programs, so that we can make sure that Boys and Girls Club is not only successful, but that we help them build the community-based programming that we already have here in Daly City, especially our primary partner being the City of Daly City.
Are you directing that to me?
Whoever is prepared to
I put it
respond.
on. So this contract, as you can see, is really focused on the Future Grads program, which is not like an after-school program. It's a program where the students work, and I actually see somebody from the Boys and Girls. I didn't expect you to be here. Thank you, welcome. Thank you for being here. We started in the spring with the Future Grads program, which they have in the South County. And our Westmore and Jefferson, some of our Westmore and Jefferson students already participated. So this is sort of codifying for the future, how we're going to have them actually in our schools during the school day. And it's focused on, and I won't speak, I wasn't expecting the question, so I will just give you my best answer. It really is focused on getting students to college and then through college. We all kind of have heard that phrase before, to and through. They really are focused on this. And I think they're focused on first-generation students, college-going students. And they go in the summer for a week and learn like all about what you need and what are your goals and what do you need to get there. So this contract is specifically geared towards that. It's really not like the aftercare kind of thing, the after-school programming that Daly City Parks and Rec does. So it's not in conflict.
Of course, yeah, thank you. And I would encourage, Representative, if you have anything to share. First of all, thank you for being here and seeing this go through. I know how it is when you're working, with any agency, nonprofit, whatnot, and seeing districts and cities approve these programs. It's a big thing. It means a lot. And so, any anticipation of an current and existing collaboration with?
I would like to move to call the question if there's no.
Second.
Excuse me, hold on.
Okay.
I'm asking if she wants
Okay,
to say anything.
okay,
Are
this
you
is a
trying to say?
parliamentary procedure, so Ms. Salahuddin called the question, which by Robert's rules, and then
Uh-huh.
Mr. Lee seconded. So by Robert's rules, it's been moved and seconded that we stop debate and that we vote on this motion being discussed. So
Point of clarification.
all of those in favor of stopping debate
Excuse me, point of
and
clarification.
voting now.
Motion for clarification?
There's no motion for clarification.
It's part of
This
procedure.
is, she called the question, it's been seconded. We have to.
There's no debate, this is a
We have
question.
to move,
you're saying
we
you
have
don't-
to stop debate, we have to stop debate and move. So all of those in favor of
So
stopping
you're
debate.
saying you don't want her to speak, is what you're saying? Trustee Salahuddin?
I'm saying I don't have a need for her to speak in order to approve something that's on
Right.
consent agenda, and that we have a long agenda of other things, and she's been sitting here for a while and probably
Thank you
would
for
like
your
to go
time.
home.
No worries, no
If she
pressure.
wants to speak, I don't have a problem with her. if she
We need to
wants
just take a hand vote.
Okay, so let's, the question has been called, it's been seconded, to stop debate, so now, and to vote on the pending question. So this is just on the contract for the MOU with the Boys and Girls Club. And so
Thank you, Boys and Girl
those
Club.
those in favor of stopping debate and voting now, raise your hand. Okay. Those opposing stopping debate? Okay. So
Now we can move
so
to.
so we've all, by a vote of 4-1, we're stopping debate, and now we need to vote on this MOU.
Move to approve the MOU with the Boys and Girls
Second.
Club.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your service.
If she would like to say something, nothing's stopping her from saying something. That's what I figured. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it's item 12E13.
Yes, I really need to say that, Mr. Ochapinti, had your questions for Ms. Presta ahead of time, we could have avoided this. And this is the agreement we made among each other, that if we were going to pull a consent agenda item, that you had to notify either myself or Ms. Presta with any questions and avoid this situation. So I reiterate to the board, the entire board, please do that and honor your agreement with each other. So now I'm going to move on to item 12E13. 12. Okay. That is the contract with Eagle Protective Services. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So just pertaining to this contract, what are your questions? You have any questions on the contract itself?
Yes, that's why I requested to pull it,
Okay.
President Sahara. So this is a contract with Eagle Protective Services. It is a contract that extends a current agreement, it seems, or at least with any changes, to the total of $265,000. That's over $250,000 for the services that they're providing through security, fencing, and whatever, not fencing necessarily, but the contracting, the security around our community garden here at Center Mine Del Rey. My first question is, why is this contract being renewed at a time when our district needs money for our students who are the most vulnerable and the most needing in our district and in our county, in our city? Why is it on this agenda?
This is my agenda item. This contract was originally approved in January, and they began providing service in February. It has been 6 months, and it is time to renew the contract if we would like them to continue. The renewal is for 12 months, although it does have a clause, as most of our contracts do, that it may be terminated early with 30 days' notice. The amount that is on there is if the entire contract is served out.
So my follow-up question would be that this, like the last contract that was approved, which I voted against, is not part of our LCAP. And so how is this in compliance with or in alignment with any part of our LCAP?
Since the service has been provided, that has cut way down on the amount of time that staff is having to spend dealing with issues that arise from the security of our campus. And it has allowed our staff to feel more secure in being in that area, as well as we have heard positive feedback from everyone that comes and goes from that area, including the preschool, the basketball program, et cetera.
Just to note again, this is not in compliance with the LCAP per your explanation, but I have heard negative comments from community members who feel unsafe because there are surveillance cameras in a parking lot where many youth and families are not only coming to the garden, but to the services at Ceremony Del Rey, and they feel unwelcome, even students at Shasta Summit Public Schools, the high school here on our campus at Ceremony Del Rey. And so I would just offer that. I would expect for you as an administrator in our district to acknowledge very clear and vocal public comment in our community, which was extremely opposed to the first $250,000 invested in these cameras, which was not publicly presented appropriately on agendas prior to their approval. I actually have to disagree that I feel this is a misappropriation again of our public school district money in some of the most diverse and lowest income communities in the Bay Area. I find it very strange that we are paying for a security guard to the tune now with total services of $500,000. And I will ask, per your assertion, how is spending $250,000 saving staff time here at Ceremony Del Rey?
Well, because we aren't having to deal with the issues that the security is now dealing with.
You're saying that the time it would take you and resources it would take district staff would cost $250,000 to do what exactly at a community garden?
Sorry, I'm not prepared to answer that question. If you had provided it ahead of time, I could have run some numbers.
Oh, I would disagree with you.
You can't-
Yes,
She gave you the reason, and you disagree with her.
that
I
is
mean,
that is
this the
inadequate reason
Okay.
for an explanation.
Can we
Let's
get
be
back on
clear.
task here?
Well, I'll call the question.
What is your question?
Oh, I think he was calling the question.
I'm calling the
Calling a
question.
question, but no one's seconding, so.
I mean, I will just say this, that it is a lot of money to be spending. It's absolutely correct. It's a lot of money to be spending. We could close the garden and not spend it. I mean, the garden is not in the LCAP either. So we're doing a lot of things that are not in the LCAP that we shouldn't be doing. Using district resources to maintain what is essentially becoming a city park, that is not in a school district LCAP. We are not supposed to be running park-like structures. That's the city's job. But since we are being asked to do that, we have continued to do what, in order to work with the community in good faith, we said we would keep the garden open. This is the way we can do it in a way that doesn't have continued staff interaction with community, with people in the community garden, which was not working. Also, that the fencing has been broken into and damaged and knocked down multiple times, even within the last month. So there's a need. The other issue is that we're letting student-aged people into that garden along with adults who have no background check. So, and we have found drug paraphernalia, alcohol bottles, all kinds of things in there. So, and the security guard is the one that's going in, finding them, removing them, stopping people from using them. So, you know, I don't want to debate this back and forth. This is the only comment I'm going to make, but I'm fine with the ongoing having a security guard there. I wish we didn't have to. I wish we could just close the garden. But for right now, it's staying open, and so this is what the path that we're on.
Okay. You had your hand raised. I will recognize you, but we really have to move on, so.
So just a few corrections. One, Finding drug paraphernalia and all these things, a lot of that amounts to hearsay. I've not seen evidence of that. We never have. There are these things found in public parks and our schools, which, is part of a community that needs to be addressed through school safety and the things that we do. In addition, nobody in the community has ever asked, and there has never been a stated need or demand from the community for any kind of policing. So just to state the fact is, other members of this board have initiated spending $500,000 on a community garden. We could have done so many things. We can do so many things in our schools, including this school campus here at Cerro Del Rey, with $250,000, with $500,000. And all the money that's gone into that has come from the community. This district has not funded the development of this garden. The community has done it out of the love of their heart and their volunteerism. And the background checks is another disputed issue. Many of the people who haven't asked did submit that paperwork. So I just want to confront and address those issues
They all
because
didn't
they're not
pass.
facts.
They all didn't pass.
No,
That's
that is not true, actually.
That is,
You cannot state
that
that
is
at public
true. No, I
meeting
can't. I
in that
can't. I can't
context.
state that because
I'm sorry. I can't let that stand. But that's my answer to that.
I can't
President
state
Tejada.
that at a public meeting, that I'm not naming names. I'm saying we know, and it's a public record, so if you pull it, you can get it. Not everyone passed, and so that's the problem.
It
So
is not a public record.
Okay.
It's correction. This is
yes.
not a public record.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, you had your hand raised.
Just real quick, just a quick comment. I know just in terms of staff time that it would take, it actually would be pretty easy to make some quick estimates based on how much time I know various administrators as well as other staff here at the district office have spent in trying to manage issues that have come up, that have been documented both photographically and by video. And those numbers would certainly start to total up very quickly in terms of the amount of labor that is costing us that could be otherwise spent in actually managing the district itself, which then goes back to taking care of the students. So us trying to manage a piece of land that is really benefiting only a handful of people, if you want to call it benefiting a handful of people, has been costing us a fair bit of labor dollars. So the opportunity cost of that is this. Do I want to spend the hard dollars for this? Ideally, no. Perfect world, no. But we know that the behavior has been such that it requires the management of our staff previously, and now at least we have some professionals that can take care of it for us. So with that, I make a motion to approve this contract.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No.
So let's do the roll call vote,
Yes, the
please.
roll call vote.
Garrett? Trustee Ochapenti?
No.
Salahuddin?
Aye.
Vice President Lee?
Aye.
President Tejada?
Aye. Okay, for a final action item, it's the contract on auxiliary services for adult education district office construction. Ms. Van Raphorst?
President Tejada. Before you today are 3 contracts that will support the construction of the adult education and district office buildings. Specifically, we have a contract for CIS Incorporated to provide inspector of record services, and 2 separate contracts for Cornerstone Earth Group, providing geotechnical and soil analysis support in 2 phases.
Okay.
Second.
Hold on.
Favor?
Excuse me,
Aye.
I have questions. You can't just.
Yeah, you can make a motion in second, and then you open
No,
it up.
I have questions.
I
There was
didn't-
no discussion open for the action item.
Okay, Nick, if I could just finish my point. You can make a motion for a motion and a second, and then you open it up for debate.
Yes.
So that's how it goes.
That's
President Tejada, are
right.
you opening this up for debate?
Yes, I
after a vote?
am. I'm sorry?
There's not a vote.
It's not a
It's just
vote.
a motion
It's a
and a
motion and a
second, and then you
second.
open it up for
And then
debate.
you wanted to discuss, so
Sure.
here's your chance.
Sure.
What is your question?
I have several concerns and questions. As we know, and it seems pretty obvious by the navigation of this narrative by the rest of the board and certainly some district members here, that any discussion around Westmore Park has been avoided, has been shamefully hidden, and even circumvented procedurally by decisions and items like this in our school board. My first concern is that we have actually approved several contracts and resolutions and other things on our agendas for Cornerstone Earth Group, which raised the issue of pesticides in the soil at Westmore Park in October of 2021, and it was raised to an agenda meeting almost 3 months later in January of 2022, at which point my questions, I feel like, weren't heard. not only around the fast tracking of a development in Westmore Park, but the environmental and health concerns. The board asserted that the concerns were being addressed by the soil sampling by Cornerstone. That was in January 11th of 2022. Here we are, 7 months later, nearly. Actually, more than 7 months later, and the soil sampling not only has not occurred, the park is currently being bulldozed before any environmental review, mitigated or not, has been conducted at this park. So my first question, and I am
I have to
upset.
say, that's not true. The
I am upset.
environmental impact has already been completed and was done in the appropriate manner. That you asserting that there was no environmental review is completely false.
No, a complete environmental review includes investigating pesticides in a
Okay,
public
Mr.
park
Ochipin,
in a
can I
residential
ask you to
community.
lower your voice, please?
Sure. My first concern, and I am upset
Very
because this
aggressive.
is clearly malfeasance politically, and I believe in terms of public policy. First question is this: why has it taken nearly a year after our discovery of pesticides at Westmore Park for us to even see any soil sampling from Cornerstone?
You would not see the soil sampling.
Results from the soil sampling and data that informs our decisions.
It would not come to the board.
Why would it not come to the district school board?
Because that's not your role. That would be the role of the construction director.
So point of clarification, you're saying that elected officials on a school board who are concerned about pesticides in the community have no purview over the results of that investigation?
If you would like to request a meeting with Ms. Phillips, and she could go over the information she has, or if you would like to suggest that it be a agendized item, et cetera, but these types of items that you're bringing forward are the course of our work. It's the work that we do as a district that you have hired us to do, that we report to the superintendent, and she directs us how to do it. And that is the course of our work. That's not the role of the board to get into that minutia.
I will respectfully disagree briefly, is that our role is oversight and governance. In public policy, it is the explicit role of elected officials who are under oath to ask these questions and find this information, myself included, who has asked several times.
So, I'm sorry. So your question was why haven't you seen any of the soil sample reports? And I answered that question.
No, my second part of that question, and you just interrupted my point, was our job is oversight. And the first question I had was, why has the park been bulldozed after several times this item has been raised over the course of the year? Why was it that this was delayed until after the destruction of a public park?
Because this is the next phase. It hasn't been delayed. There has been no secret plot. There is the Cornerstone Group did the work they needed to do prior to the work that has been done now. Now they will do the next phase of work prior to the next phase of work to be done, and then it will continue on.
That, I hear your information. It makes no sense to me, in my experience around environmental science, to remove the soil and topsoil from a public park, and then after destroying the park, investigate whether or not there's the impact of pesticides, which we should have the information on
It's not
by now.
investigating, it's continuing to investigate the new areas that are exposed.
Excuse
The
me.
areas that are being managed right now have been analyzed and are being abated in the way that they are supposed to be abated.
So my last question in terms of this point is, they have had we've discussed this several times at the school board and approved contracts. I don't know that there are new areas of Westmore.
It's a different phase of the project.
I'm sorry, I will formally request from the district any and all information pertaining to Westmore Park. You have 10 days, please, as a request from a public official and a California Public Records Act request. I will not have to fill out paperwork. This is something very professional. If we are conducting our business publicly with integrity, I would like any and all information pertaining to Westmore Park and the environmental review, including pesticides, and how that has not been abated fully or investigated because there's still pending investigation. I am concerned for our community, and I'm deeply concerned and actually beyond upset that the park has in itself been destroyed prior to us even receiving this information. There was no way for me, as a public official, to continue making decisions about these things if I'm constantly being denied information, including the community who live there.
Hey, Mr. Ojapinti,
Yes.
I take issue with your tone of voice directed toward our deputy superintendent. Had you presented your questions ahead of time as we agreed, we may have been able to avoid this whole discussion because it is one-sided right now. And I'm just going to, I think you're very forceful in what your opinions are on this.
I'm very
So now-
passionate, thank you,
so
because
now
this is
I
a
would
serious
like-
issue in our community.
Okay, I would
President
like-
Tejada, respectfully, I've raised this question several times over the last 7 months. This is not the first time I have raised
I
this issue.
know that, so let's,
So
okay.
thank you for
Okay,
acknowledging that.
just a moment.
But please be honest with
Mr.
your
Lee,
responses.
Right,
Thank
Mr.
you.
You don't have to
Lee,
yell at us.
You don't
I'm
have
not
to.
yelling.
You are, you
Mr.
actually
All
are.
right.
You are.
Since I've got the floor.
I've been cut off many times.
Mr. Lee has the floor.
Go ahead, President.
Mr. Archipinti, I appreciate the passion with which you've brought to this topic this evening. I think if you'd gone ahead and looked carefully at the scope of work that Cornerstone is providing, specifically during construction services, we will provide consultation and part to full-time observation and testing as necessary of the geotechnical aspects of the project, including the following geotechnical construction tasks, with a list of all the work that they will be observing. They will also do some testing as necessary to document compliance and to confirm their observations in the field. These are the professionals that are actually going to do the work that I think you're very concerned about.
Right.
So I understand the passion that you bring to it, as you know, given your self-proclaimed environmental expertise, which I appreciate. So let's move forward. Let's trust the work that Ms. Van Rapport and Ms. Phillips are doing to make sure that this is done appropriately. Trust the work that Cornerstone, clearly professional and highly sought after in this particular field, can do, so that we can make sure that the construction work is done safely, that they can and that everything is done the way it needs to be done. I appreciate what you're saying, but I do think it is getting to be a late hour, and I do think we need to move forward and approve the litany of contracts that we have associated with the AEDO.
Is that a motion?
Vice
I
President
move
Lee,
to-
just a quick
I
response.
move- Actually, the motion.
Oh, there was a
the
motion.
and second is
This was
already.
the discussion.
I wanna
So I'm
acknowledge-
closing discussion now.
Yeah, well,
It is closed. It is closed.
I will say this.
So I will take a vote. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
I will expect more from this board in response to Westmore Park and our community moving forward,
To
especially
take-
with respect to Sarah
You're
Del
not
Rey.
listening to me.
I hear what you're
Please
saying.
take a roll call vote.
Cutting off debate is
Please
not
take
okay,
a
President
roll
Tejada.
call vote.
Trustee Ian Garrett,
Aye.
Trustee Ojapenti,
No.
Trustee Slahuddin,
Aye.
Vice President Lee,
Aye.
President Tejada.
Aye. Thank you. Consideration of future agenda items? Do we have any? Okay. When you get a motion to adjourn,
You have a.
I do. So, we adjourn. I would like to take a breath now. Because this is solemn and needs to be a solemn moment. We adjourn tonight's meeting in honor of two members of the JUHSD family, Joanne Jose Tixon and Judith Bond. Joanne Jose Tixon was born in Delano, California, and came to work for JUHSD in 2006 after retiring from a successful career at Pacific Bell, AT&T. While at JUHSD, Joanne held multiple positions, including school clerical aide and paraprofessional at Terra Nova, secretary at Thornton, and finally, the administrative assistant to the Associate Superintendent of Educational Services. Joanne eventually retired from JUHSD on October 2019 and spent much of her time with her grandchildren. Joanne passed away on July 22nd, 2022. She is survived by her two children, Jillian and Renan, and three grandchildren. Judith Bond came to work for JUHSD in 1977 and dedicated 31 years to Saramonte, Oceana, Westmore, and Thornton High Schools. At the start of her career at JUHSD, she was hired as a resource center aide and eventually went on to be a Title I aide, school receptionist, typist, AV clerk, and finally, principal secretary. Judith passed away on July 22nd, 2022. We, the Jefferson Union High School District Board of Trustees, send our condolences to Joanne and Judith's families, friends, and host of loved ones. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Rosie, where did you get this?
Oh,
I hate mine, and yours
I
looks so
think
nice.
so. I think I did. Yeah.